All right, this is the Slaptail Squad, and I am the Beaveman. Hello, Slaptail Nation. And you may not know that you wanted it, and you didn't ask for it, but I did, because this is the Slaptail Squad, and I'm the fucking Beaveman. And here it is. We explore what I like to call the Karate Kid universe. So let's get to it.
Slaptail Squad, assemble.
Yeah. Okay. No round of applause there. Whatever. All right. Don't get as excited as I am.
Wait, we're just waiting on you. We're waiting on you because you just gave us a speech like, this is how we're going to do it. You're going to wait for my cue. You're going to move on when I tell you to move. Who are you? Are you the John Kreese of Cobra Kai? Because you just told us there is no mercy. You will listen to me. And we just did Sensei.
I was trying to get you ramped up and excited.
Hey, Sensei!
I thought that maybe that you would express how awesome it was.
Hey,
After I said, let's get to it. I thought maybe it would be infectious, and the rest of you have been like, yes! But it didn't happen.
Sweep the podcast.
I was pausing for dramatic effect.
Okay, well, that's fine, too. With me today is my number 2, the Ronz.
Hey. Thanks, Big Man, for having me, as usual.
He's brown like poo. He's number 2, the Ronz. Also with us is my boy, Skylar.
Hello.
Hello. Why don't we see a picture of Skylar?
And resident
let's just gloss over that one.
Resident fellow nerd and super excited about the Karate Kid discussion is friend of the show, Andy.
Hey guys, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
All right.
How's the traffic out there, Andy, on I-94?
It's fine right now, although tomorrow about this time it might not be as nice.
And over to Skylar for the weather report. How's it doing, Skylar? What's our weather looking like?
It's cold as heck out there.
All right, back to you, B-Man, at the newscast desk.
Okay, so I'm just going to get into it. That's why I said let's get to it. And you're talking about other shit. I'm super excited to be talking about Karate Kid.
So am I.
Let me ask this question. And let me also make this statement. This is where the Ronz is going to shine, you guys.
Whoa, look at the beard on Skyman. Okay, cool.
Are you fucking listening? I said this is where the Ronz is going to shine. And do you know why Ronz?
I have no idea, but if you say I'm going to shine, I'm going to shine.
You are going to shine because you, my friend, are a black belt.
Yes, I am. And
not only are you a black belt.
Not only am I.
You are a black belt in Okinawan karate.
I would like to say I'm a beginner student in that, yes.
Oh, wait. Whoa. Okay. All right, then. So after all this time of you bragging about the fact that you're black belt, now you say you're a beginner student.
Well, they often say that.
Before you were not fucking humble whatsoever, and now you've decided that now that I say that we're going to utilize your expertise, and this is where you're going to fucking shine, you say that you're a beginner student.
They say you actually begin learning karate or any martial arts discipline at black belt level. So, I am a humble beginner.
Now, let me also say that we have some other expertise, and that expertise is in the form of nerddom, and that is me. I'm a big fan of Karate Kid and the Karate Kid universe. Also, Andy, I would say as well.
Yes, sir, I am. Very much so.
And Skyman.
Yeah. I used to...
Not as nerdy as I, but...
Well, back when I actually did karate, I was a lot more into it. And then now as time progresses and I'm trying to get back into martial arts, I definitely have rediscovered that.
But aren't you, Beaveman and Andy, both study and practitioners of a Japanese style as well?
Well, let me get to that. Let me ask you this question, Andy.
Yes.
And I shall ask. Actually, I'm going to ask the Ronz first, and then I will ask Andy as well. Ronz?
Yes.
Are you A martial artist.
For the definition, yes. Yes, I'll say yes.
Oh, you have taken the humble route as opposed to the other times throughout the podcast with your braggadociousness. I don't know if that's a word or not.
You know, I should say after our podcast on narcissism, I actually did a little bit more research. And then when you said it, there are 5 key points of being a narcissist, according to the medical book. And I went, wow, I think everybody I know has at least hit 1 or 2 of them, but I think I hit 5 of those. And I'm like, wow.
Oh, there's 9. There's 9, if I remember correctly, but you have to have 5 for you to be diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder.
Yeah, but 9's a bit narcissistic in itself, so I'll go with 5. That's more humble.
You got to go for all 5. You got to get all 9 if you want to be a true nerd. Anyway. Okay, so same question for you, Andy. He who is greater than the age of 40 and still going by a child's name.
I am 40. Next month I turn 41. So I can be Andy for 1 more month. How's that? I would consider myself a student of martial arts. Because unfortunately I don't have time to practice multiple different styles. So I do not consider myself a quote unquote martial artist.
I see. Interesting take. Let me ask. Let's ask the boy who studied under the Ronz.
No, he didn't study underneath me. He
studied next to you and sometimes above.
In fact, he was one of my partners for my test.
Yeah, but he was doing the correct moves.
Hi-yo! Actually, he was quite well at it. He was quite good at it. I was surprised that when he dropped out, and I know why he dropped out. You know, I didn't want to keep intimidating him, and I said, "It's not about me. It's about you. You can come back." Right?
Like this podcast right now that clearly is about you because I was going to ask him a question.
So continue. I'm sorry.
And what about you, Skylar? There was a point in time when you actually wore the headband replica as worn by Ralph Macchio in the Karate Kid.
I still have it in my actual possessions. I just started practicing martial arts a little bit again. I would definitely don't. I think the best way to put it is that I am just someone who witnesses and enjoys the other things that martial artists in the past have done. I guess I don't really consider myself a huge part of it, but I'm enthusiastic about it.
Nicely answered.
Very nice answer.
Let me tell you something. The first Karate Kid movie is near and dear to my heart. I can remember seeing that movie and thinking, gosh, I wish I could find my own Mr. Miyagi to teach me karate so that I could be a total freaking badass like Daniel or like Johnny even. So culturally speaking, this was the right time to grow up to watch that movie for me. Sure, Daniel's playing a teenager at the age of 17 and he's like 45 years old.
Hey, Beef son, you know well.
1984. How old were you in 1984, Ron? You're like 32 then?
I was. Yeah, I was getting AARP notifications in the mail at that time. Right, I couldn't believe it. Right, and I figured if I could be like Mr. Miyagi at that age, there was a hope and future for me somewhere.
Well, you're kind of like Mr. Miyagi. He didn't know martial arts either. Hi-oh! Hi-oh!
Well, you know, when you look back, and if you're going by the actor who played him, Pat Morita, he didn't know martial arts, right?
I just said that.
No. But
I fucking just said that.
You said it in a way where you have to make the distinction between the character and the actor, right? And I thought you were talking about the character itself, because when we're first introduced to Mr. Miyagi, he doesn't know karate. He doesn't. He won't display it. He doesn't practice any mannerisms.
You mean he doesn't tell people all the time?
Yeah, he doesn't. Yeah.
Like other.
Exactly. He doesn't boast about knowing karate, but he knows karate, Ronz. I mean, it's not like he like learns
which
it.
Is very much the essence of karate.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, The whole point of learning karate is to talk about it to people who didn't even fucking ask all the time.
All the time.
I thought that's what it was for.
Yeah, it's an unwritten tenet. It really is. If you look for it, it's an unwritten tenet. You won't find it.
Well, I think it's very important that the Ronz is here because I'm going to ask a lot of questions about the history of karate and looking at the Karate Kid and the different style that it might actually be. And because of that, because we've got the Ronz here, I feel like we are well prepared to get those questions answered. What do you guys think?
I think
I totally agree.
Oh, thank you. You know, if that's the case, then I should bring in RJ then, right? Because RJ would probably, RJ knows if not more than me. Carrie does, if not more than me. They were taking it longer than I was.
You are the resident expert. That is why you're on. Why we have you. Stop deferring to other people when this is your time to shine, Ron.
He's just got some other stuff to do. He's like,
No.
well, actually, I have a son and a wife, and
No. I was referring that they've been in it longer than I am, so they would know more. But
All right, shut up.
Okay.
Shut up.
Okay.
I'm just telling you how I felt about the Karate Kid. By God, let's take it from the top. Daniel LaRusso, little Italian kid coming from New Jersey, pushing his car for his mother to drop the clutch, get it going there. I don't know how they made it to California with that car, but they did. And right away, just like in every other movie, Daniel gets his fucking ass kicked. Now I ask, why?
Well, there's a little bit more to that. When you look at the first scene, it's Johnny actually shows up and becomes the antagonist.
What are you talking about? How's that the first scene?
When they're on the beach, that's the first scene of Johnny.
On the beach, Johnny doesn't show up immediately. Playing soccer on the beach.
Yeah, flirting with Allie, who, if you were our age, was probably everybody's crush, or at least should have been.
Should have been.
It was mine.
What are you trying to say there,
It was
Andy?
mine. I was
Did you
like,
have
why
a
is that
crush
old
on Johnny?
kissing that young?
No, I had a crush on Allie there, Ronz.
Okay, just making sure. I mean, hey, don't worry.
I can't relate. I was -14, so
-14.
But I was speaking that, they were playing soccer, but Johnny shows up as the protagonist and
Antagonist, Ron. Protagonist is a good guy.
Yeah, you're right.
It's not his expertise yet.
I know.
Yeah,
we haven't
right.
gotten to the actual karate part yet.
Yeah. So yeah, when Johnny shows up, Daniel just goes over there to protect her, and that's when
protecting the radio.
Well, you know, that radio was considerably a large amount of money to have. I mean, you needed like 17D batteries to power it, and that's a big chunk of money.
That is true. That is true.
That is true. Back in the day, that was expensive.
But why immediately? Why does Daniel just look like a fucking punching bag?
I think he's so small is probably part of it. Like Ralph Macchio was kind of tiny.
Yeah, I actually listened to him recently talk about, he's like, it's kind of funny you see me with these super long arms and legs and a really small torso. And he's like, I just looked gangly and I didn't really, so, and, it's the story, it plays into that. I mean, if we don't care about him immediately, or he doesn't come off as somebody who's kind of boastful to kids that he just meets because he's trying to fit in. He tells, what's his name, the kid in the, their apartment complex that he's done karate, he's taken some, and the kid asks if he's ever kicked any ass, and he goes, a couple times. He's trying to, trying to like show off, but you see Daniel when he sees that dog, he gets the dog water and stuff like that. So they set up the character really early on that he's just a good-hearted kid who's just kind of pissed that he had to move from where he was at to where they're now at, and he doesn't know anybody, and he's just trying to prove something, trying to get friends, trying to be cool.
Watching that movie and watching it again over and over, I don't know how many times I've seen it, I don't know, an inordinate amount of times. Watching it now, and the reason why Mom moved there, she got some job in computers, and then she immediately ditches that job to work as a waitress, and all this time you're like, if she'd have stayed with that job, you guys,
Right. I know, computers. It's
She'd have
literally
been a
the
fucking
newest thing.
millionaire.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, but instead I'm going to go work at a restaurant.
Right. Did you know, and this is the extent of some of my note taking, that the story is actually kind of based on the writer of the movie's kind of life. His name is Robert Mark Kamen, and he got beat up by some people.
Yeah.
And that kind of spurned him into learning martial arts and stuff like that. So I thought that was pretty cool when you hear that, because at least the writer had something to pull from when you're writing a movie. It always helps. So
I think there was also a factoid that he heard about a story similar to that, so he wrote a script around it as well. If I'm remember that.
Well,
But,
he
yeah.
had something to do with the Rocky movie.
Yeah, something like that.
And I think the director directed Rocky.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Yep. So
Okay, well, it was near and dear to my heart because I was bullied ruthlessly in high school. Not a fun time. So I always wanted my own Mr. Miyagi, but of course that never happened.
we all did.
Didn't happen. We all wanted our own Mr. Miyagi. I wanted the real Miyagi, though. I wanted the, Fumio Tamura. I wanted to run into that guy.
Right.
Speaking of which, and most of the people don't brag about it all the time, but the reason why the Ronz is the expert is because although Andy and I are indeed both black belts, we do not practice karate. So we are not nearly the expert that the Ronz is, because Andy and I both practice a highly secretive, little-known martial art that probably has less than 100 practitioners in the entire world that we know of.
I would say less than 50 if I had to take a guess.
Well, I said that we know of. I mean, there.
Oh,
could
sure.
be
You're right. You're right.
there. So I
Some
always say
secret.
less.
Yeah.
Well, I am by far I may joke about being a black belt, for the podcast, but let me set the record straight. I'm by far no means an expert on karate.
We've seen you train, Ronz.
But
we've seen you train. It is a complete. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
We've seen you walk around with a sai sticking out of your foot.
Oh, you saw that, did you?
How many times did you drop those sai, Ronz?
Oh, I think a couple of times. I haven't I haven't handled them in quite a few months, but yeah.
But if he did, he'd drop them.
Well,
Yeah.
you can't make fun of him for that because that's not karate. That's the other thing. So
That's
he's
Kabuto.
not our resident Kabuto expert.
But
Good point.
we'll start.
I will caveat to that,
Yeah.
though. Some karate styles incorporate Kabuto with it, and so you learn it along with it.
And
But
that's exactly what we're doing. So,
No, you
come back, Skylar?
Well,
You're all
karate
set?
just means empty hand. So it's kind of
Yeah, where'd you learn that?
The Ronz.
it eludes me.
And
I remember the wise words of Ronz that he took directly from the Karate Kid.
end credits, roll credits.
No, Andy and I, just to set the stage right, so that we all know that Ronz is the expert. Andy and I practice. Andy and I practice jujitsu. Which, do you know what jujitsu means, Ronz?
Oh gosh, it eludes me at this time. I'm sorry.
Jujitsu is the gentle art of folding clothes while people are still in them.
Yeah, that sounds good. That's like judo.
What?
It's like
No,
judo.
it's not like judo at all. It's like jujitsu.
Oh, okay.
You out of your fucking mind? Did you just say it's like judo?
Oh
Well,
boy.
judo, you
No,
fold
it's
people
not.
in. Okay, sure enough.
Judo is like jujitsu.
Okay. You're the expert.
There's
in
no
jujitsu.
okay about it. That is actually what it. That's
You're
judo
the expert.
is child. Judo is the child of jujitsu.
Fair enough. I don't claim to be an expert.
It's just you, Andy. Will you please
Yes.
reach through the computer
The
and
internet?
Can you
Reach
not
through the
understand,
internet.
Beaveman, that I'm actually agreeing with you? I really am.
No,
I'm
you're,
saying
no, you're not, because you said it's like judo.
you're right, and then you've changed my ways, and I'm saying, okay, you're right. I can agree with you, but that's not good enough. Like Johnny, you just want to keep antagonizing me to
I
the
am like
point where I find my Miyagi and go, "Will you train me?" Right? And he's only going to train me after you verbally beaten me down and he witnesses it. Then he
All right,
goes,
well, let's talk about the movie. Let's talk about
Anyway.
the
Okay. Yes. First off, just so I know, how old? Oh, sorry, Beeves. How old was each of us when we first saw the movie?
Okay. It came out in '84, but I know I didn't see it in '84 because I saw it on videotape.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm guessing back then it took at least a year for us to get movies on videotape. My guess would be I probably saw it in '85 just before the second movie came out. That would be my guess. I probably saw it in late '85. I saw it in, probably. That would be my guess.
And you were how old again?
I was, I would have been
12.
Holy shit, 12. I'd have been 12. So yeah, that's what it is. I saw it in probably like 6th or 7th grade. Yep.
Okay. All right. Wow.
Ronz.
Wow. Oh no!
Damn, you're old. Like, damn you's old.
Honestly, I can't remember when I first saw it. I really can't. I've seen it so many times, but I can't remember when I first saw it. Right? I probably saw all the movies out of succession now. Right? So I remember seeing Karate Kid 1, then maybe 2, then 4, then back to 3.
Oh, okay.
So I've seen them all, but not. And this time around, I actually saw them all in succession. Karate 1, 2, 3, and then the next Karate Kid.
It's not Karate 1. It's the
Karate Kid. Okay, whatever.
They didn't come out with the Karate Kid and label it Karate Kid 1.
Okay. I was giving context and putting it in order in my mind. I'm sorry.
Why?
He's thinking of Star Wars.
Even that, they don't call him Star Wars 1.
Oh, yeah.
You big dummy.
Mm-hmm. By the way, speaking of Star Wars, and I know this is related.
No, we're not speaking of Star Wars.
Okay, fair enough. I was going to mention that how many of you geeked?
How
many of you geeked on Nightfall when Mark Hamill played the Templar that trained the other Templars?
Okay, I did, but not everybody saw Nightfall.
I did too. I was like, oh, it's Mark Hamill. He's the first real Jedi on Earth.
And you remember him from Star Trek. You're like, he was in Star Trek.
Yeah, he was. Wasn't he in Star Trek? Was he a red shirt?
Okay, listen. It's time for me to ask this question of Ronz. Okay, so Daniel is taught a style of martial arts after Miyagi does a Spider-Man thing, jumps down from the fence and defends Daniel after he's about to get his ass kicked. I must say though, Daniel made a mistake. Why did he have to fuck with them after he'd already got his ass?
Exactly. I've always wondered that. Move on. You didn't have to put the hose over, and that was a kid trying to get back at somebody that hurt him. But it was stupid. Dumb move.
I'm like, they already kicked your ass, and they're already pushed you down on your bike down a hill.
Exactly.
And so you decide that in your infinite wisdom, after they've left you alone, that you're going to mess with them.
Well, when was it going to end? And then, when was it going to end? Honestly, with that plot line,
all he had to do was, here, let me take the cowardly route. Okay, let me tell you what it's like. Let me tell you what it's like to be bullied by more than one person, like 7, 8, 12 people. You don't take a stand because there's 12 of them. That's what my life was like.
But he took on one person at one time. They just ganged up on him. Because in the bathroom scene, it was just Johnny. That was it. That was the only person.
They were all there.
No, they weren't. They came in after him.
But they were all there.
Oh, well, they are.
Right. And plus, Daniel picked a fight with somebody who he knows has a core group of guys that have his back all the time. So you're not just picking a fight with Johnny, you're picking a fight with Cobra Kai.
Yeah. Okay. I see the point.
Which he was very underprepared for.
Yeah, he didn't really think further than the hose. That was it.
Well, I know I personally would have taken the shower off first. I would have taken the shower costume off. That would help me. That might have helped me get away just a little bit faster. I don't know.
Maybe a little bit.
I don't dress as a shower.
I think if I remember the scene right, he almost got away with it until he ran into one of the Cobra Kai's.
Until those kids showed up in that pesky dog.
Yeah. I think one of the Cobra Kai's came into the bathroom when he was trying to get out, right? And that's when he got recognized, right? Because, hey, it's LaRusso. And it's like, he's a dead man. So that's when they started going after him. And they shouldn't have been smoking in the bathroom anyway.
You knew what they were smoking, right, Ronz? It wasn't just cigarettes. You know that, right?
No, I did. What were they smoking?
Oh boy. Well,
yeah, I know.
look it up online. You'll figure it out.
Okay.
Ron, did you notice, as a black belt in karate, did you notice that when Mr. Miyagi jumped down from the fence and did his little martial arts ass kicking, did you notice that wasn't Pat Morita?
I did indeed. Right. Because if you look at the different hairstyles, the guy, when he has his back turned slightly, you can tell that he's got a longer, little bit, he's got a wig on, it looks like. But I think that guy was the stunt coordinator for Miyagi's stunt double stand-in, and one of the coordinators for the fight scenes.
All right, so here's the important question. So you know that wasn't Mr. Miyagi. We've already established that Pat Morita doesn't know martial arts. Did you recognize what style Mr. Miyagi was doing?
Yeah, I did. Well,
right.
It's actually a combination of several different styles, right? But if you had to really pinpoint it, right, you could say it was based on Okinawan Goju-ryu, right, or Pangai Noon style, a half hard, half soft style, right?
I thought Pangai Noon was some sort of a Chinese dish.
It could be, but Pangai Noon comes from the Fukushima. No, not Fukushima.
Make some shit up. No,
Fujian province in southern China. And if if you remember that, where Miyagi's father or grandfather sailed from was China, right? They don't say we're in China; they just say China, right? Just like Trump would, I think. And that's where he learned it. But it's a southern style of kung fu. Fast forward, Goju-ryu. You got Pangai Noon probably thrown in there. You got different styles thrown in there, but it was mainly half hard, half soft style, right? So when you look at it, the blocks are hard too, right? And that made me think about it. And because when he blocks really hard. And then you realize that there are no product placements for dogies or anything like that. And you figure that would be why.
Product placement. Interesting.
I think you make a good point. I think that you might be slightly correct on that. But as you are the expert, I defer to you.
Oh, please don't, but thank you. Anyway, well, over to the Skylar.
But here's my question though.
Yeah.
If it is Goju-ryu, and you can kind of allude to that based on the second movie.
Yep. Also. And the fact that the writer who wrote the movie, that was his primary art that he in turn studied was Goju-ryu.
And when you look at the third movie, you can actually see the influence in there, right? Because when the pottery, the woman's throwing the vase or making the vase, and her hands go up really soft, and Daniel takes just like anything could be used, any motion that you do could be used in karate. And he goes in and shows her that motion with her making the vase and the hands come around. That's a simple block we use in our style. Similar to it, I should say.
Is your style descended from Goju-ryu?
No. I don't want to offend the practitioners of this, but it's along the same lines. Well, it's basically from Wechi-ryu.
Right? Let me ask you this question, Ronz, because you are our expert in karate.
You keep saying that. I'm just going to get yelled at.
Andy, are you an expert in karate?
No, sir, I'm not. I thought that the Ronz was our resident expert in karate.
He is indeed our resident expert, is he not?
Okay.
I introduced everybody according to their expertise.
Okay.
Did I say Andy and John are experts in karate? Skylar's an
expert. Whoa. Who did you say? The Beaveman? And?
Did you call me the Beaveman?
No, I called you Beaveman. You're going to have to go out and edit that name out.
Anyway,
the point is, make a mark on the time.
Now, if we're talking the time frame that Miyagi would have known this karate, at what point was it that, and we all know there's different styles of karate, but there's four main styles. that everything is descended from in modern times. Goju-Ryu probably being one of them. What's the other three?
Depending on who you ask, could be Goju-Ryu, as you mentioned, Uechi-Ryu, Shotokan, and Koshiken.
See, this is why we have the Ronz here. As far as we know, he's right.
It's true.
Right.
But there are different offshoots of that. I mean, if you really take
no, that's not what I said. I said in modern times, it is established. We have said basically it's a common knowledge, is it not, that there's actually four styles of karate, and there are offshoots of those styles. But yes, Shotokan being one of them, Goju-Ryu being one of them. I didn't know what the other two were. You seem to have named them off quickly, so I'm going to say you're probably right.
Well, I know Koshiken, and I'm probably saying that wrong.
I don't know Koshiken.
Yeah, Koshiken and Shotokan are similar, right? And then you've got Goju-Ryu and Uechi-Ryu, which are similar in styles. Now, if you ask the experts, I'm pretty sure they're going to lambast me and tell me they're not. But everything, and there's a term we use sometimes, everything's onash. You've got similar motions in every style. So one borrows from another from one style. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen one style that hasn't turned a kick into its own definition of what it is.
All right. Well, anyway. Okay,
it's like Baby Yoda.
Once again, we've decided that Daniel picked a fight when he shouldn't have.
No, he defended Allie when he shouldn't have. He should have just let her get hit. It would have ended the movie right there.
Yeah, if you could end the movie right away, that's what I'd have said. That's what I'd be like. Your radio, brother.
Yeah, here's the radio. Hit her. Go ahead. I don't think.
Best $7 for a movie I've ever spent. It's over, and I get out early.
Well, I mean, if you look around, you're like, why am I the one? Why do I have to do anything? There's other people around here.
The other girls were just as good looking too.
No, they weren't. No, they weren't.
No, they weren't. No. I mean, her two best friends were two ugly bags.
Okay. Jeez.
They were not cute. They were not cute. But you're right, Ronz. He probably should have just let him break the radio, and he could have had his discussion with Allie. That's fine. I mean, looking back in hindsight, myself in high school, that's what I would have done. I'm like, I don't think this little Mexican needs to get his ass whooped for any particular reason. But let's be honest, I wouldn't have even been invited to the party in the first place, so I wouldn't have been there.
Well, they were on the beach anyway, and they were basically, it's also a Romeo and Juliet story. Yeah, but it's a Romeo and Juliet story. Have you noticed that? That was a really cool subplot to it. Yeah, here you have the rich
every
kids.
Romance is romance you can say has some Romeo and Juliet-esque.
But here you have basically also a West Side Story too. Here you have the rich kids on.
All right, Nope. Let's talk about training.
Okay.
Let me ask you this, Ronz, as the expert. Let me ask Andy first. Listening audience of the Slaptail Nation, did you know that Andy's a black belt?
Really? That is so awesome.
You know why you don't know? Is because I don't just say it at the start of every single episode.
You might not know. You probably don't know because, yes, he doesn't say it every time he speaks. Andy, would you have trained Daniel that way?
No, I would not, because if I knew, but then again, I know how my mind works, and my mind wants to see, I want somebody to punch at me so I can block it. But I think that's my favorite part of the movie, or one of my favorite parts of the movie, is that this is probably one of the most purest martial arts movies that's ever been made, trying to boil down martial arts to its barest of bones. So I wish I would be smart enough to teach somebody martial arts that way, through just normal chores that can then translate into other movements from blocks.
Basically, you're saying that child slave labor is the way to teach martial arts?
It could be. Muscle memory works, man.
Well, I understand why they did it. I understand why they did it, because it's a movie, and they were trying to make it look clever, and for him to all of a sudden understand why he did it. They made the little sacred pact with each other. But there's a scene, at the end, kind of when he gets pissed off. He's like, I'm being your goddamn slave. And he's been working for the past 4 days. It's years later when I watched that, I was like, holy shit, that was only 4 days.
I know. You would think it was months when you first watch it. You're like, oh, Daniel, but no, you're right. 4 days. 4 days.
And he basically had a month and a half to train for the tournament.
So what you're saying, Beaveman, is you can have Skylar do all the household chores for you, and he'll be an expert in karate in 4 days.
No,
Miyagi-Do karate.
Miyagi-Do karate.
Yeah, he's not from Okinawa.
Yeah. So no, here's what I'm saying is if I had a month and a half, and this is why obviously nobody's ever made a movie about me, I would not have done that. I truly think that now watching it again, I'm like, I understand they were trying to show something, for him to be practically, but let's be honest, he just did all Miyagi's work for him. Once you boil it down, that's what he really did.
Yep.
Yeah.
He just learned something aside.
Well, he learned.
I really don't think he would have accomplished all that shit in 4 days.
Well, he learned another skill, right? He learned carpentry, right? Sanding. He learned how to wax car. So he could go to any place in Reseda and get a job. And in fact, in the Cobra Kai series, what does he do? He opens up a car lot, wax on, wax off. He knows how to polish cars now. So it actually came in handy in the long run.
The point is, I could do the same thing without doing it that way. So my student actually understood. I could teach them circle blocks and high blocks, low blocks, et cetera, in 4 days, and they would be just as skilled at the end of the 4 days.
But how would you break down the attitude then?
What the fuck are you talking about?
They kind of bring it up in Cobra Kai, or they at least like hint to it or reference it when Daniel's looking for new students, and he's like, okay, you guys can start with doing these, and then we'll put you on doing these, and they're like, well, we don't want to do your chores, and they just leave.
Right. Because that's what people would do. They'd be like, why would we do that? You could teach, you have to adapt your training method. You can't expect somebody to do that. The only reason it worked with Daniel is because that's how they wrote the movie. If you did that now, someone's like,
he was also desperate to learn. And when you find someone that desperate to learn, they're willing to do anything. Right?
What do you mean?
Well, if you said, Ronz, I want to train you, right? And I came to you, I said, I would say, Beaveman, I want you to train me, right? No. And I'm really desperate.
I'd immediately say no.
And you're like, okay, this is what I need you to do. I want you to go out and rake all the leaves, but rake half the yard one way, half the yard the other way, right? And at the end of the day, I'd go, okay, but why? You don't need to know that now. Well, finally, I get fed up. You're like, well, look what you've done. You've accomplished raking my yard, so Skylar can come back here and make his videos. So you've actually helped a great filmographer out. That's your lesson. You help out. So somewhere there is an encoded message there. I don't know.
What exactly is your encoded message?
Yeah. Well, no, it's one of those things where it's like, if you're desperate enough and someone really wants to learn, you have to break down them first before and build them back up. Right? If they have attitude, you've got to break down that attitude, and that's what he had going into it.
I disagree because you know what?
Of course you do.
I could teach you martial arts in a month and a half without doing all that stupid shit because I know how to break somebody down to build them back up without doing stuff like that.
Oh, well, maybe that's the way Miyagi learned.
How do you think they train soldiers? You actually pound the actual real skills into their heads. You don't do this.
I was a vet for 8 years. I understand that as well. Right?
You were a vet for 8 years. You're still a vet. You're not a vet anymore.
Yeah, you know how it is. Right? No, I understand where you're coming from.
You don't know how it is.
Yeah.
Shoot by shooting, not by waxing.
I think it depends on, for martial arts, I think it probably depends more on the student because you might have some students, who do get benefit out of doing other things that they could possibly later tie into martial arts. And then some people you have that would probably get a better benefit out of just doing it right away. because some people are harder to train than others. Like everybody starts at a different training level.
I would agree with that. Yeah. I mean,
As being one of those people that's hard to train.
yeah, no, you're absolutely right. There are different ways to train somebody to get to the same results. I agree completely with that. In fact, we're doing that right now. So
Yeah,
I
Ron,
learned differently.
when you started training, you actually were not taught anything. You just had to come to the dojo and sweep every
Sweep
time.
the floors.
What happened?
Actually, I did that because I sat on the bench for 4 years. So you're right. I did sweep the floor. Right? I did. Aha! Backfired. Can't come after the Ronz like
I
that.
don't think it backfired. I really don't think it
Okay.
backfired.
Yeah. No, I volunteered. Yeah. I did some things.
Okay, well let's talk about that training then. Okay, so whatever. So he finally realizes after 4 days that he was actually taught something. But I still don't think that sequence of punches and kicks would have gone over very well.
Well, yeah, they do it again in we watched the reboot of the Karate Kid. They do the exact same thing where Jackie Chan starts punching at Jaden Smith like as fast as he can, and he's blocking every move. You're like, whoa, hold on. It's only been like 2 weeks. Like I could do that for maybe a year, and you still wouldn't be able to block that fast.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, obviously, like, we do this stuff where I can set up a sequence where we call 2 steps or 1 step sparring or whatever, where you've got choreographed moves. And still knowing where the punch is thrown, it's still hard to do. You have to, like, practice it over and over and over and over again. I mean, you watch the Ronz, he's practiced all that shit over and over and over again, and he still fucks it up.
I think everybody screws it up. Right?
Yep.
But yeah, I'll admit too, I screw it up on a daily basis. I really do. It's just one of those things. I mean, it is what it is. You're absolutely right.
It
Yep.
just makes
I
you
love
wonder, though. But it just makes you wonder, though, why the timeline is so accelerated. Because in most of the movies, they obviously, because movies are meant to make time seem shorter. That's the whole point of a movie. But you're like, okay, they didn't have to make the tournament, a month and a half away. So now he's only got so many days to train. You have to wonder why they like shrunk it down so much and made it so, because, the 80s is a decade where I don't know how well that movie would have gone over if it like wasn't an 80s movie, because it's a lot of movies back then were kind of out there, and it fits right in the theme and like the tone of what people really enjoyed. But like you watch it now and you're like, why is everything going so fast, and why is this kid like I don't.
Well,
it,
let me interject.
I don't actually see it that way. I think the reason we're still talking about this movie 30 years later is because it moves so fast, and because it's not real life. Let's be honest, real life is boring. That's why we watch movies. So I don't want to see Daniel miss blocks and miss punches after 4 days training, because then it takes me right out of it, because I was like, well, I can go mess up that.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
yeah,
can go do that
exactly.
right now and get punched right in the face. That's fine.
Yeah.
But yes, but I do get what you are saying, is the movie does move quick and you have to kind of keep up with it. And I think that's part of the reason they did it, is so people don't question, he only trained for 4 days. No, people are now, he's now on his date with Allie. So we're now getting invested in that. And then they met, and then he has some issues with that because he sees Johnny messing with her at that, country club. So the movie does move along, but I think it's on purpose. So you don't, while you're watching it, you don't pick things apart. You could do that afterwards, like we're doing now.
Yeah, but
which is fun.
On that note, though, we're all, we all practice different styles of martial arts, so we're able to bring that. There's no way in 4 days he would learn to block that quick and that fast, right? And
True, but
Right.
it's suspending that disbelief, but that's only what we know now. Watching it back then, I was like, oh my
Yeah.
God, I really need to find my own Mr. Miyagi, because I
Yeah.
would like to be able to do that in 4 days.
When I was 6 with my Karate Kid pajamas, I was in heaven. I was like, yeah, I can block any punch that comes my way. Why? Because I clean my floor using wax on, wax off.
What's interesting though, as you age, you get to start to understand some of these things. So that was my early age, and I happen to have grown up in what I consider the golden age of martial arts movies, because we had that, which is kind of a nice, touchy-feely martial arts movie, but it wasn't a real martial arts movie. It still makes Daniel LaRusso a common household name in the martial arts community, but it's not really a martial arts movie. You know, when I grew up, I had like Enter the Ninja and American Ninja, and
You mean those are real good martial arts movies?
all the Jean-Claude Van Damme movies and the Chuck Norris movies. I had all that stuff. So those were real. I mean, you really could romanticize all that. So that was great. You know, this isn't one. So I got to grow up with that. But as you get older, when you watch those movies, you start to learn some things that are pretty interesting. Because in the Army, I learned combatives and I did boxing and stuff like that. And then you start to realize that when you watch those movies, how ridiculous they truly are for one reason and one reason only. You could block anybody's punch in those movies because the punches are so slow, the kicks are so slow. You don't have that, the punch is actually held out there for somebody to block it. So even though it's choreographed and it looks nice and pretty, that's not how fast punches actually come or are pulled back. So as opposed to all these punches and blocks and stuff, if you've ever been in a real fight, you don't usually block anyway. You just get out of the way of the punch. Blocking isn't necessary.
With that, though, Williams Zabka, I said that name wrong, actually kicked Ralph Macchio in the face during that skeleton fight scene. And they had to shut down production for a day.
And so that has what to do with what I just said?
Well, no, you're saying, well, it's all choreographed. That would never happen, right?
Why would that never happen?
I don't know. I just wanted to point out where. No, I just wanted.
You know why that happened? You know why that happened, Ronz?
Why? Why did it happen? I just wanted to point that out. That where it's
because there's no martial artists in that movie.
Not even Miyagi's double.
He is Fumio Demura, and the guy
about the
who played
referees?
John Kreese.
The referees were.
Actually, one of the kids on the Cobra Kai, it turns out he was like a second or third degree of some kind, but it was one of the lower ranks. I think it was the kid that hurts Daniel's knee, that Bobby kid or whatever his name is.
Okay.
But he purposely didn't say it and pretended to be dumb so he didn't get fired from the role because he thought he wasn't going to get it if he knew correct.
Yeah, none of the main characters are martial artists.
They are all what I call a screen fighter. They're basically trained for that movie and that movie only.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and what's really interesting about that, Ronz, did you catch this? And you might not have caught it, and the only reason I caught it is for a very specific reason. Did you notice that in the first Karate Kid movie, when Daniel goes to the karate dojo and sees Johnny there, did you listen to the commands that Johnny says in the dojo?
Oh, I want to say I watched it. I really did, but right now I'm drawing a blank.
They're Korean.
They're Korean.
Even
I'll have to rewatch
not
that
speaking
scene.
in Japanese.
I'll
He
have
says
to.
Junbi, and that's Korean.
That is Korean. Are you sure? I'll say you are, but I'm not sure.
Go ahead and you can click, type if you like.
Yeah.
But the reason why I know, and I'm going to throw this out there, braggadocio. It's braggadocio on my part. The Beaveman is also belted in a martial art known as Mudokwan Tang Sudo, and that is Korean.
Yeah.
Well, I have a red black belt.
Thank you for backing me up on that, Skylar.
I was trying to remember where I knew June B from, and that's where I know her from.
And the guy that actually trained all of the actors came from Chuck Norris's group, and
right, he's
the actual referee at the end of the movie. That I think his name's Pat Johnson or something like that, but he's from Chuck Norris's group, and yeah, you're right. So that whole Tang Sudo fits right in.
Well, I have a Korean martial arts background too, and I didn't catch on that. I should have. Now that I.
No, you don't really, because you took Taekwondo.
Okay. I'll take a jab at you.
I mean, not really. Not really.
Not really. Yeah.
I mean, not really.
Not really. I mean, does any of us have any?
Well,
I wrote down on here. Go ahead, Scott.
No, you can go ahead.
No, please.
Well, I don't have any notes, so if you have a note, that's probably going to be more beneficial.
Oh, no.
Ah.
Well,
They start talking about it. Cobra Kai is based on Tang Sudo
Cobra
and
Kai.
Miyagi style of Goju Rule.
We're talking about the movie. We're not talking about Cobra Kai yet. What were you going to say, Skylar?
well, because we were talking earlier about the theming and everything, how I don't know, obviously having never lived through the 80s, watching the movie again now, do you wonder a little bit like I do, like why this is all taking place in California? Like, I'm assuming karate was bigger in the 80s, so
Yes.
it would have probably had a presence. But watching like the reboot and stuff now when they send them over to China, I'm like, I feel like that makes a fair amount of sense for today. Because you watch the movie and you're like, if you don't know how big karate was in the 80s, it kind of, like, I don't know, it kind of throws you a little bit for a loop because you're like, why is this happening in a rich California neighborhood?
Well, martial arts had a very basic kind of Renaissance period. So after World War II, it was kind of brought to the United States by service members. And after the Korean War also. So more after the Korean War than after World War II. So it had a kind of renaissance here, and then you can get into all the things in the 80s when Tang Sudo become Taekwondo, or they split or whatever to spread it throughout the world. But it was always my understanding that the West Coast kind of was big into martial arts. And I can remember going to the West Coast when I was a kid and seeing just tons of dojos there. And there's even a movie, actually Andy and I were talking about this the other day. It's one of my favorite movies of all time, and it has just horrible acting in it, just the worst acting ever.
Star Wars?
Except for Karate Kid 3. But No Retreat, No Surrender. And they actually kind of talk about how this kid moves to Seattle, and he goes to look at check out a dojo, and there's like, oh, this is LA karate, not impressed, or something like that. So apparently, I do believe it was very big on the West Coast, and you can actually thank Bruce Lee for that, because Bruce Lee was spent a lot of time in Washington, and actually Bruce Lee's gravesite, or his memorial site, is at a graveyard in Seattle, and I've been there, and it's very fucking cool, and I was so honored to go there, and I will say it, I said a prayer over Bruce Lee's grave. Also interesting of note, Jimi Hendrix is in the same graveyard. Jimi Hendrix, same graveyard.
That's interesting.
Oh.
It is interesting.
And what was the prayer you said over Bruce Lee's grave?
Well, if he says it, it won't come true.
That's between the Beaveman and Bruce Lee.
The dragon.
The dragon himself.
The dragon himself. Yeah. So, what did you ever find that out there, Ronz? Are you still fucking looking?
Well, I found out it was a mixture of.
No, that's not what I asked you. I said, why don't you just look up, click, and see what commands he was saying in the first. That's all you had to do. Literally, you could have looked up and said, what commands did Johnny do in the dojo on the internet? So, who really knows martial arts in the first movie? This is what I wrote. Ralph Macchio. Not then, not ever.
I think he talks about in interviews that he doesn't really know like that much about it.
He doesn't. I saw a couple things that said that he considers himself an ambassador of martial arts.
That makes sense.
I would say so.
Yeah.
Well,
he holds what? Balls? What? What were you gonna say, guys? He holds what?
Well, I know Johnny holds.
That's not what I said. What were you just saying? He holds what?
No, I was going to get to that. The members of usually I didn't do all the research on Ralph Macchio, but I did a little research on William Zabka, and once again, it's kind of fuzzy here at this point because, he's got I think either a first or a second degree black belt in Shotokan karate.
No, he doesn't.
He got it after he filmed the first movie. He did say in recent interviews that he doesn't have a while.
He doesn't have a black belt. William Zabka? Nope. His kids might. He doesn't. He has. This is what was really funny. I looked him up, and they tried to make it sound impressive by saying that he's a second degree Green belt.
Oh, that's where I got the actual second degree from him in a recent interview.
He's
but
a
okay,
second degree, which means and I think it's in Tang Sudo.
which
But he's
makes
a second
sense.
degree green belt, which is only halfway to black. That's halfway to black. And that was years ago. He doesn't even practice anymore. Apparently his kids practice though. Apparently his kids sing.
So second degree green is still twice as much as Ralph Macchio ever knew.
That is true. That is a heck of a lot more than Ralph Macchio ever had. If he was taking Taekwondo, then that's you got to get 40 belts before you ever get to black in that one, because because Taekwondo is just a money grab. Oh, these white people will just take any belt. They will just pay to test for any belt. But not.
I stopped at about camo because I was like, wait a minute, camo belt? I didn't know we were going to do camo when I was younger. I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm out of here.
I'm so done. I'm just going to use my
I wish
Sharpie.
I wish I still had it. That would be great if I had the camo with the one red piece of tape around the bottom of it.
So I outrank good old Bill in Tang Sudo.
Nice, good job.
Yes, thank you. Well, that's the thing, though. You watch this, and years later, you're like, well, which one of these motherfuckers actually know martial arts? Because, you so idealized them when you were a kid, and now you're like, I could have been in that movie. I didn't know martial arts either. I could have totally been in that movie.
I know.
Yeah.
So the only one who knew martial arts was in the first one, really, out of the main actors, was Martin Kove. That's it.
Well, what do you think now about the modern renditions? Like, do you think, because most of it is, well, I say the cast is younger, but a lot of those cast members are still like 24, 25. Do you think a lot of them learned karate, or is it just all choreographed?
Well, here's what kind of bothers me about the whole thing. A couple of things, like I said, they really romanticized the whole thing, which is great. I love that movie. Nobody can ever tell me that Karate Kid is a sucky movie. I love that movie. But, looking back at it as you're an old man like me now, you're like, why was not understanding anything about the tournament circuit? There's an actual circuit. I mean, he won, he was the champ of the All Valley tournament. Big deal. Okay, so go over to the next town. You're in LA. Okay, we'll go to go to another county or go to another area in California, and you can fight in those tournaments too. Tournaments go on every weekend. I don't know what I call him. They have a different name than Sensei. My Tang Sudo guy, he did tournaments every Saturday and Sunday of his entire freaking life, pretty much, and has so many trophies. It's ridiculous how many trophies he has. And that's what he did every weekend. Every weekend he fought in tournaments. Yeah, so, they make a big deal about the All Valley tournament. That's not a big deal.
Yeah, but in the movie, they don't focus on the...
Shut up!
They don't focus on the trophies. They focus on the karate, right? Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, but they don't focus on going to tournaments constantly. In fact, the tournament was not about the tournament. It was about ending the bullying, right? So, after that, the bullying ended. Why go on? It ended. So why?
I think Kreese cared about the trophies. I think he might be the only one they show, though, that cared about the trophies.
Totally.
I agree with that.
Well, I'm just saying it makes it show that what little you know about it. It's still a romantic version. What I'm saying is, if you're the uninformed and you watch the movie, you're like, oh, it's amazing. He won this tournament. He's like the greatest in the country. You're like, no, tournaments go on all the time.
Yeah.
Constantly going on. There's constant. As a matter of fact, there's so many tournaments. Once you go to all the tournaments, like say you go into all the tournaments in Michigan, well, you can still go in Indiana and Ohio. There's always tournaments going on. I mean, I'm not a tournament fighter, and I fought in a bunch of tournaments. You could go to one every weekend if you wanted to before COVID. They're always on.
Yep. And I found out that karate does not equate to going to a Magic Gathering tournament, so they don't go together. You bring your skill different set of skill sets when you walk in. Though you can beat up on all the guys.
They frown down on people walking in and beating up nerds at the comic book store. You're supposed to use your cards for that. You can't just physically assault people.
Yeah, especially when they put down a blocking card. It's like, I block. It doesn't work like that.
What's pretty sad is when they put down the attack card and Ron falls over.
Mm-hmm. Those edges on those cards are sharp, yeah.
You should have blocked it. Actually, the thing that I thought that was the most accurate watching it now and still loving it this many years later is that they didn't get all fancy and throw all these kind of goofy moves in the tournament. Truly, the one who should have won the tournament though was what the hell is his name? Fidel or what the hell was that guy's name?
The dude who fought Johnny before Johnny fights Ralph.
That's the guy who could have actually won.
That guy had skill.
Yeah. Apparently, though, did you know that that's the guy that's on the post doing the crane technique?
Really? No, I didn't know that.
That's
That's actually who did that.
Oh, interesting. Cool.
No. Actual martial arts. The crane technique is just a jump kick, right, Ronz? I mean, basically, that's all it is.
Yeah. There, I might get a little technical here, but we used to practice something similar like that in our style.
Yeah, it's called.
And we used to laugh at you doing it. Yes.
Actually, believe it or not, it was in one of our katas. I think you and I did it, Skylar. It's and I'm going to date ourselves, Dainisi-san, where we block twice, grab each arm, and then we jump up into the middle section.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Aha. Yeah. So, yeah, we do that crane technique right there, if you want to call it or it's a jumping kick.
Yeah,
a jumping front kick, basically.
Yeah, it's just a jump kick.
It's a jumping.
Except your arms are up, making yourself a target.
Lulling them into a false sense of security.
Yes. What I love is, if done properly, you can't defend against it. We hear that over and over again. If done correctly, no can defend. Oh, great, good to know. Crane technique, can't defend against that, just so you know. Even though you're totally telegraphing that kick, by the way.
Chosen can in parts.
But Chosen was trained to look for that particular kick.
That's a good point. Yeah, he actually trained in that style. So yes.
You mean the jump kick? Yeah, I don't know. Let me tell you this. If you rear up like that, I'm gonna know you're planning on kicking me.
Anybody should, yes.
Well, anybody should.
Who has a little bit of training, like 1 day training, you should know.
Yes, exactly. You might want to know that there's a kick coming at you, and probably what you shouldn't do is run directly into that kick like Johnny did.
Yep.
Okay, so let me ask this question. On The Karate Kid, the first one, love that movie. Can't say it enough. Why do they think that kick is illegal, Ronz?
Because it's excessive. I want to say it's excessive contact to the face with a kick. Because I don't know what
kicks
the rules were.
Punches are. Because kicks are perfectly fine. Johnny kicks 4 or 5 people in the face leading up to the end fight, and those are points. But you can't punch to the face. For some, I don't know why it is, but that's their rationale. Because I watched it yesterday as well, and I was like,
I'm trying to figure out why is that still even. And there's an interview that Ralph Macchio does with some late night talk show host. I can't remember which one, and he asked him that same question. And Ralph Macchio, to this day, still mulls that question over in his head. Because, there's always these little theories out there that Ralph Macchio is actually the bad guy in this movie.
Yeah. In fact, they actually address that in Cobra Kai.
Yeah, they play around with it a little bit.
And one of the first 2 episodes.
Having been bullied, I can tell you that Ralph Macchio was not the bully in that show. But
they try to subvert it. They try to make you think. I think that's what they do to try to make you warm up a bit to the antagonist of the original movies. Is they're like, okay, we got to make him a little more likable.
Well, the other thing you always have to remember, though, is that theory has been around long before Cobra Kai ever came out. So they didn't just
develop that before the internet was a big thing. Like we used to talk about it amongst friends.
Yeah,
I actually, when I heard about that, right, I actually looked at Karate Kid just recently and actually tried it.
Good job, buddy.
Good job. Thank you, buddy. Who's a good buddy? You are. And I said, okay, I'm going to see if Daniel is really the bad guy here. And it turns out, no, he wasn't. He was just bullied.
He wasn't? Hey, thanks for clearing that up for the rest of us, man.
Well, yeah. That's the way I look at it. Yeah.
Well, now I don't have to rewatch.
Why you're the expert. Hey guys, guess what? Daniel isn't the bad guy. Ronz cracked the code.
I did. And for those all playing along with your home card, you can check that off.
Ron somehow figured out what we all knew from day one.
Well,
thank you for clarifying.
The thing is, when that theory came out, I actually wanted to disprove it, right? So I looked at it any way that it could be disproved, right? So that's the way I looked at it.
It doesn't seem like you had to look at it from very many angles.
Yeah, well,
maybe the fact that they pushed him off of a hill riding a bike and almost killed him.
I mean, basically assault.
Yeah, pretty much assault.
Assault with intent to kill. I mean, anyway, here back to the whole tournament thing. And is that an illegal kick or is it an illegal move? Let me give you my theory of why it's not. And I am by far no expert in karate like the Ronz is. The Ronz has fought in endless tournaments and
no, I haven't.
And is, dare I say it, the man is a black belt in karate. Or as he calls it, karate. Te means, I don't know if you guys know this, but te, that means hand.
Hand.
Oh.
Yes. Kara is
empty.
Very nice. Very good, Skylar. So if you put them together,
you get kara hand.
Exactly. You get hand empty.
Hand empty. When you do it, and what would have been awesome if when Miyagi said that is if he would have had the empty hand and then he'd slapped Daniel right across the face with it. See this hand? This is why it's not an illegal hit, in my opinion. One, when they first go into the tournament, they don't know the rules. And Allie says anything above the waist is a point.
Mm-hmm.
No time did anybody say to Daniel, it's illegal contact to hit the face. So, if anything above the waist is a point, Daniel kicking Johnny in the face is not an illegal contact move. Here's the other thing. Daniel was doing a kick not necessarily intended to kick Johnny in the face in the first place. Daniel was doing a kick. Johnny ran in. Had Johnny not run in and Daniel landed the kick, it most likely would have hit Johnny in the chest or in the solar plexus. Johnny ran in face first with his fucking face and got kicked in the face.
Yep.
So it is not an illegal, in my opinion, it is not an illegal hit. I don't even know why it still comes up as possibly being a legal hit. The other thing is, if it was an illegal hit, the person who is the referee, who is a grandmaster in Tang Sudo, would have said that is an illegal hit. End of story. So therefore, it is not an illegal hit. It is totally legal. If it was illegal, the referee would have called it and said it's illegal.
Exactly. He says point, winner, and everybody runs out and lifts up Danielson, and we're happy, and that movie ends.
Now, on that note, though, I know that back in the late 80s, I did a tournament in England and 2 tournaments in the States. And
well,
I know, no.
Look at me.
No, I'm bringing this
I
up
went
for
England, guys. It's jolly old.
I fought in England.
I'm bringing this up.
I'll hit somebody with a biscuit.
Because they came out and they told you what the rules were, and they also told you where you could strike.
Nobody got time for that.
Right? And, yeah, but they also said, and this is very crucial, if you drew blood, you were disqualified.
What if you're Rambo?
So when I saw the blood that Daniel drew on the kick, would he have been disqualified in the tournament unless they signed something special about it?
Well, technically, he was actually bleeding prior to that because remember, Daniel trips him and then hits him in the back of the head with his hand, and Johnny's nose gets bloody, and then Kreese looks at him and he tells him to then sweep the leg.
You're right. Yeah, he should have been disqualified, possibly. But I didn't know those tournament rules. I know that for me, those were tournament rules. What about you, Beaveman? When you fought in the ring, did they have those type of rules for you? If you drew blood?
No, the rules are, and it varies by tournament, like you said. I mean, they tell you the rules when you start the tournament. It's a whole big thing. It's not like you just show up and start fighting. And before you fight, they go over the rules again. And generally, the rules are everything in the front, it's above the waist. You don't hit to the back anymore. It's pretty much all front. and everything below the head is 1 point. The head is 2. If you do a takedown and you hit them while they're down, that's also 2. So they go over all that. If you get excessive contact, you technically can get a warning. So like if you rock somebody's head but those things happen, same thing if people rush in or, you get a lot of stuff where a point won't be called if you don't pull back. So in other words, if you hit somebody with your hand, if you leave your arm extended, it's usually not a point. You have to usually bring it back. So it's punch, bring it back, so that it's actually noted, so that it's an actual clean hit. If it's not a clean hit, you usually don't get a point. Same thing with kicks. You can throw a kick and hit them, but you should bring it back to show that it's an actual controlled kick. So people get knocked out in tournaments accidentally. It's not like people are intentionally knocking people out. Right. So if somebody gets a bloody nose or something, I got a bloody nose at a tournament, and the guy didn't get a warning or anything like that, and it was not a big deal. It happens. It's all about, in my opinion, this is why tournaments are interesting for me now, is because tournaments now are trying to get people to be very accurate. So one of my teacher was a career tournament fighter, and he's 70 years old now. He still can, if he wanted to, he could still do tournaments now. He's like over 70 now. But he would say to me, you actually pick a target. So that if he said to you, I want you to hit that guy's patch, using this type of kick, you should be able to touch that person's patch without causing it hardly any major damage to that person at all. You just hit it. And that shows a really good level of skill and control. So I think that's important to see. But they do have other type of fighting also, what they call continuous fighting, where they're kind of playing off to the MMA bullshit now, which not a lot of skill involved in that. It's just two people beating the shit out of each other.
Yeah.
Which, I'm too old to do that stuff. I doubt I'll ever fight in a tournament again, actually. Got too many stuff wrong with me. Ronz, he might.
No, that's actually on my bucket list to fight in the tournaments again. It really is.
Just go get your ass kicked at any time.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I know that. By the way, the guy we're thinking of is Ron Thomas, who has a second-degree black belt in jiu-jitsu. And you're right, his agents told him not to say anything because of what he knew. Right? One of the Cobra Kais in the original
Who was Ron
movie.
Thomas? Who was he?
He was one of the Cobra Kais.
Cobra Kai lackeys.
Oh, so nobody important, so it didn't really matter.
Yeah, he was a second-degree black belt in jiu-jitsu, and his agent told him not to say anything about his experience. They were only hiring actors at the time, right? And they said they were going to train him anyway, so you just be quiet and do as I say. Right?
So this is what doesn't make any sense to me. So going back to the whole tournament thing. If you go to a tournament now, prior to COVID and afterwards, you can see some really talented kids doing some amazing stuff. And honestly, why wouldn't you just hire them?
Right.
I mean, you're not hiring awesome actors in the first place. You mean to tell me you can't, out of the hundreds of kids who do this stuff, you mean to tell me that you couldn't do a casting call and get 100 people for each part and find somebody who could sort of act and still be an awesome martial artist and could follow choreographed fighting?
This is finally where I can come in and say
finally.
Well, here, let me before you do that, let me say something.
Shut up, Ron. He just said finally this is where I can come in, and you're like, well, hold on now.
Well, no, because I actually researched this, so I'll let Sky speak, and then I'll speak on it.
Maybe you should.
Okay.
It was almost part of the Karate Kid universe.
He still is.
Going through I was going through my things today, just getting my checks and papers and stuff all organized, and I still have my check from Cobra Kai season 3, so I just have that kept for any reason. But I think one of the main reasons that they did it is there's a lot of different things involved with scouting people for sports and scouting people for acting. And usually if people are wanting to get into acting, they some people, for example, when they were looking for Spider-Man, they had something like 2,000 people come through, and Tom Holland pushed it a little bit over the edge with his audition with his physical abilities. But that's not something that, one of the big reasons he got that was because a lot of people don't also have that training. They had traditional actors training and not physical training. So there's not always enough overlap. And then there's also a lot of, contracts, and there's like different laws and things. So you might be better off getting, hiring these people which I think is probably a lot of the reason why they hired people over the age of 18, is because you can only film with minors for so many hours a day. Like, I think if you are under 17, you can only film for a maximum of 8 hours a day, I think is what the limit is on that. So if you cast people who are older and can play these parts and be convincing enough on camera, usually they're focused more on the front runners and the people who are actually in front of the camera for most of the time. Because, for a lot of the extras and stuff, if you watch the extras in the background, they're probably older and they're not necessarily doing a whole lot, but unless you're looking out for it, most people won't notice.
Right. And I listened to one of the my current favorite like B action movie stars started his own YouTube channel during this whole COVID thing because he couldn't make movies. And he said, unfortunately, a lot of good actual fighters don't make good screen fighters because they can't adapt their style. Van Damme was an excellent screen fighter because he didn't care about his punches being wide and loopy because that's what the camera picks up. Nobody wants to see a regular fight. That's why you watch UFC. It's fun, but it's not dynamic and it's not fun to see on a big screen type thing. So, but to your point though, they could at least find some of the background characters who aren't the main kids to be excellent martial artists for the, like in Cobra Kai. And some of the background kids don't necessarily have to be actors first and then stunt actors second. They could have just picked them for sure.
Yeah.
I was going to say on that note, during that jumping over the fence scene when Miyagi's double came in, right? Those aren't the actual Cobra Kais. Those are his students from the guy's dojo because he kept on hitting the actors too hard. They would complain. He says, if we can have my students come in, and they can take the hit. And they did that because they had to refilm the scene. And they said, okay, bring in your students. And they did that. And backing what you said is more actors come in. The reason they don't have a lot of martial artists come in is because they have these trained set of muscle movements already. So they get dancers who are flexible that can do that. A lot of these movies that come out of Japan and Korea and China, a lot of those actors are actually dancers and ballet stars who have the flexibility and the movement, and they don't have any preset determination on some of these motions. So, yeah. Back to what you were saying. Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, and along with that, and with what Ron and Andy were saying, an example of it in the past is when Bruce Lee would film for the Green Hornet, his kicks were too fast to pick up on camera because of the frame rate that they used to film at. And the way that they choreograph fights, because the way you fight in real life, it doesn't matter. Anybody can look at you from any angle. But when you're fighting on camera, you only have the one angle or however many cameras you have. So it has to be insanely controlled. And like Ron was saying, they have specific training. So where if you ask them to do something differently, it might not look right or it might not go along with what they're doing. But that's why I think the movies that incorporate real fighting, like what Andy was talking about, if you watch like the first time you watch a movie like John Wick where they're actually fighting, that's so different from the movies we see today where the fighting is all fake. And I think that's part of the...
You only want to have one or two moves. You want to have one move in the fight. You want to have two moves in the fight. You don't want some... But that's not tournament fighting. And the reason why I say it's different, and I can understand what you guys are saying, but you have to understand you would have to go to a tournament nowadays. Most kids that compete don't compete in the fighting. They compete in forms. So if you wanted somebody, if you said, hey Bobby, I want you to throw a roundhouse kick super slow, and I want it to land at this person's left side of their cheek, and then I want you to hold it there. They can do that.
Yeah.
They can do anything you tell them to because these kids now are so showy with their forms because they're at a high level of competition. So it is like dancing, and it doesn't matter what style they have. If you said, okay, I came in and I decided I wanted to choreograph it in jiu-jitsu, these kids would know how they could do it because they are moldable. So, and yeah, they can't work if they're, under the age of 18. Well, guess what? Those kids keep growing. So you'll find plenty of them that are 18 to 24 still doing the circuit, doing forms and stuff. Most of them don't fight. Most of them don't like to fight. They go there to win the forms. They go there to win. That's what gets you on the national karate team and stuff like that, is forms, not fighting.
I think
if you have a requirement to fight.
Yeah, I think part of it could also be that, necessarily it could be different types of people because the worlds don't usually mesh really well unless obviously you're doing certain things for certain projects, or certain projects are looking for, certain things. But I think especially if it comes to like younger age groups, it's really hard for younger people to act, let alone act and be good at it. So I think it's two different types of training, because if somebody, can do these specific things off camera, you might think, okay, we can probably do it good on camera, but you never know. Like once you get into that space and you're already through there, you hired somebody who's not, they might be experienced in sports, but they're not experienced in show business. So it might just be too different of a world for them to try and incorporate new people into, is what I think it might be.
So Scott, we all know that you're a film buff and you're a filmmaker. Would you hire the Beaveman as your martial arts coordinator, or would you have him as the main star of your movie?
And I don't know. We've done training and choreographing things before, and it's, he's really good at choreographing everything. I think that if I had to only pick one, I would want him to do the coordination for everything, because I know he can teach other people, and I know he could also do things in front of the camera if we laid out a strict regimen. But if I had to pick, somebody else to teach, like somebody else having to teach him to do something, I don't know. I mean, it depends on the person that I would have to pick. But like, if I wanted to pick someone to teach, I would pick him to teach.
Ah. And what would be your plot line? And how could you incorporate Andy into this?
I had a great idea for a movie that I wanted Skylar to do, but I'm too old to do it now. So
You're never too old.
Oh yeah, I'm too old to do it. So
yeah, he's got that gravelly voice, that gray beard. You look at the Beaveman, you're wondering how the hell is he understanding computers today, because he doesn't know how these thingamajobs go. Obviously, the Ron's going off the deep end because he can.
I aged 10 years this week, Ronz.
Oh, hey-oh.
I did. I aged 10 years this week after I got my MRI results.
Your remember results? Remember?
After I got my MRI results, I instantly aged 10 years. The MRI.
But martial arts keeps you young and healthy. What happened?
No. Okay. So I think that about wraps up the first movie. Is there anything that you wanted to pick apart there, Andy?
No, I think we've talked about the first movie.
Perfect. Only 3 more to go.
And I told you this was going to be introduced into the Karate Kid universe. My God, I love this universe. Yes, and my son is technically part of the Karate Kid universe.
I am on their payroll. Well, I was for
the coolest kid in this whole podcast.
There you go. Were you on their payroll?
Yeah, I have the paper check that says Cobra Kai season 3, and then I have they have all my contact info, and then I saw the guy who plays John Kreese with my own eyes as I walked to the bathroom.
Martin Grove?
Yeah,
Martin Grove.
Martin Cove.
I knew I said that wrong. Yeah.
So I think Andy, you've got his autograph, don't you?
No, I did. I unfortunately lost it in water loss that we had, but yes, I did have Martin Coves, and I also had and then I also had Jim Kelly, who was in Enter the Dragon and then Black Belt Jones and some other movies. I met him before he passed away, unfortunately.
Wow. Oh, wow.
All right. Awesome. Well, should we take a break and end this podcast and pick up part 2, or should we just go through it?
Well, let's take a break then, and that way everybody can relieve body fluids if they need to.
All right. Well, this is it for the Slaptail Squad, episode 1 on the Karate Kid. Join us in a week for the rest of it. It might be a part 3. It might be a part 4. I don't fucking know, because I love this universe.
We'll see how much we get through.
Yeah. And we can bring in other experts in the martial arts field to talk about this movie.
No, you are all we need, my friend.
No, we are not.
That is it. You're all that it was ever needed. All right, then. I'm going to say that's it for me. Adios, mooch fuckos.
Goodbye.
Say goodbye, Ron. It's not goodbye for real. I'm going to have to go back and edit this because you don't understand what I fucking said.
Oh, yeah. The only reason you're going to edit it is because, well, we know why. We won't go there, but hey. And Andy and Skylar, you guys can fight over the last word.
Bye.
There you go.